The Girl Who Spoke with Dead Cotton Pickers, Alabama 1844. Sinister warning, what you are about to discover has forever changed the lives of those who investigated this case. This may be your only chance to learn secrets that have haunted researchers for decades. Mysterious Chronicle of the Forbidden Special Haunted Edition, 1844. Terrifying discovery reveals experiments that defy nature. Exclusive investigation exposes medical conspiracy that haunts to this day. Narrated by Dr. Septimus Graves, pathologist who was never the same after these discoveries. Brave readers, prepare yourselves to discover truths that have disturbed investigators for generations. For years, whispered rumors in medical corridors spoke of experiments that transformed innocent children into living nightmares. What we discovered transcends the worst fears of human imagination. The case of Eliza Blackwood, a 12-year-old girl from Montgomery, Alabama, exposes a sinister conspiracy that extends to the darkest circles of experimental medicine in 1844. This is not Gothic fiction, every line has been verified through documents that should never have survived the passage of time. In 1844, while our society celebrated scientific progress, an organization known only as the Circle of Temporal Renewal conducted experiments that transformed innocent childhoods into senescent nightmares. Eliza Blackwood was chosen not by chance, but for characteristics that made her the perfect specimen for their sick obsessions with temporal manipulation. Terrifying transformation documented in photographs. Confidential documents obtained through our investigation reveal that Dr. Heinrich Zimmermann, the sinister mind behind the operation, had developed substances that forced human aging at impossible speeds. Eliza was subjected to injections that transformed a radiant child into a hunched elder in a matter of weeks. Medical photographs, preserved in archives that librarians keep locked under 7 keys, show the demonic progression: gray hair sprouting in the first week, deep wrinkles furrowing the childish face in the second, severe spinal curvature deforming posture in the third. At 12 chronological years, Eliza presented the biological appearance of a dying centenarian. Sinister circle financed by cursed families. Our investigation discovered that the circle received funding from industrial dynasties obsessed with the prospect of achieving immortality through profane science. Each experiment cost fortunes, paid with the suffering of children transformed into guinea pigs for diabolic ambitions. The conducted rituals combined experimental medicine with medieval occultism. Eliza was kept in underground cells decorated with alchemical symbols, subjected to ceremonies that mixed medical procedures with Latin incantations that made blood freeze in the veins. Corrupted authorities protect conspirators. Evidence reveals that municipal authorities, influential families, and corrupt clergy members were aware of the circle's sinister activities. Death records were falsified, families were silenced through dark threats, and any official investigation was systematically sabotaged by invisible forces. Dr. Morrison, a medical examiner who later developed night terrors, secretly documented impossible anatomical discrepancies: child skeletons with advanced arthritis, young organs with premature senile deterioration, brains with characteristic dementia plaques, physical evidence of temporal manipulation that defies scientific explanation. Nightmares haunt researchers to this day. Every person who investigated this case developed unexplained psychological disturbances. Margaret Thornfield, the librarian who discovered the archives, began aging rapidly after reading the documents. Dr. Blackthorne developed a paranoid obsession with his own age. Professor Crow refuses to look at mirrors since he saw photographs of Eliza. Cursed archives reveal demonic methodology. Our investigation led us to the State Medical Archives, where we discovered evidence of systematic adulteration suggesting supernatural intervention. Pages torn out with impossible surgical precision, stamps that changed color according to the light, signatures that seemed to move when observed peripherally. The crucial discovery came through carbon copies that librarians swore they had destroyed decades ago. These documents mysteriously appeared organized on our research desk one morning, as if invisible forces wanted the truth about Eliza to be revealed. Zimmermann's diaries written in ink that changes color. Dr. Heinrich Zimmermann kept records in ink that transformed according to ambient temperature, revealing hidden texts when handled. His notes, written in archaic German mixed with alchemical symbols, describe procedures that defy both medicine and physics. ELISA was identified in the records as temporal specimen alpha, a designation that reduced a living child to an object of temporal experimentation. The selection criteria were disturbingly specific: orphans with family history of exceptional longevity, all born during lunar eclipses, considered temporally biological material. The chronological essence, developed by Zimmermann, combined radioactive elements with glandular extracts from preserved cadavers, creating a compound that the scientist believed could accelerate temporal flow in living organisms. The injections were administered directly into the spinal cord during nighttime ceremonies. Photographs that haunt those who observe them. A photographic series attached to the reports documents a transformation that haunts anyone who dares look at the images for more than a few seconds. The initial photographs show ELISA as a radiant child with an innocent smile. The subsequent images record deterioration that seems to continue even after the photographer's death. First week, hair begins to whiten as if time accelerated only in it. Second week, wrinkles appear, forming patterns resembling maps of places that don't exist. Third week, eyes develop cataracts that reflect images of people who have already died. Fourth week, ELISA presents the appearance of an elder who has lived centuries of suffering. The most disturbing aspect was that the child's mind remained intact within the artificially aged body. Psychological records document ELISA crying for her mother with the broken voice of a centenarian, creating an existential contradiction that tormented even the most hardened executors. National Network of Haunted Laboratories. Intercepted correspondence reveals that Zimmermann did not operate in isolation. The Circle maintained a network of collaborators in at least 8 states, all conducting variations of the same experiments in laboratories that were subsequently abandoned due to unexplained manifestations. Each laboratory received funding from local industrial groups, creating a national conspiracy of child exploitation disguised as revolutionary temporal research. The total number of victims may reach hundreds of children, all sacrificed on the altar of scientific ambition corrupted by the obsession with immortality. Financial records show that each experiment cost fortunes, provided by families who subsequently suffered inexplicable generational curses, premature deaths, accelerated aging, precocious dementia. As if participation in the conspiracy brought temporal retribution. Underground facilities where time behaves strangely. ELISA was kept in an underground complex built 3 floors below the main hospital. Modern visitors report that clocks stop working at the site, hair temporarily whitens after prolonged stays, and mirrors reflect aged versions of those who observe them. The environment combined medical equipment with alchemical symbols engraved on copper plates that cyclically oxidize and restore themselves. Temperature fluctuates independently of heating systems, and there are reports of whispers in dead languages echoing during new moon dawns. Temporal transfer of vital essence, theory that haunts science. Technical documents reveal that experiments with ELISA were part of a much more sinister and comprehensive project. The Circle had developed a pseudoscientific theory called temporal transfer of vital essence, combining experimental medicine with occultism in a way that defies rational understanding. The central hypothesis suggested that the human aging process could be extracted from one person and concentrated in substances administrable to others through specific rituals conducted during medical procedures. Zimmermann believed he was distilling decades into elixirs of youth. Underground laboratory where time behaves abnormally. ELISA was kept in a specially constructed cell where physical laws seemed altered. Clocks functioned at different speeds depending on location in the room, plants grew and died in accelerated cycles, and photographs revealed that images aged independently of the photographed subjects. The environment combined state-of-the-art medical equipment with alchemical symbols that glowed with their own phosphorescence during experiments. Temperature was controlled not by thermostats, but by lunar phases, and lighting provided by candles made with substances that made shadows move against the direction of light. During weekly rituals, Eliza was positioned in the center of a circle engraved on the floor while Zimmerman and assistants recited incantations that made the air vibrate with frequencies causing temporal disorientation. Simultaneously, the child was subjected to procedures that included spinal fluid drainage and radioactive substance injections. Development of impossible temporal capabilities. Records document that Eliza developed abilities that defy temporal physics during experiments. Zimmerman observed episodes where the child demonstrated knowledge of future events, spoke about people who would be born decades later, and showed understanding of technologies that didn't exist. Most disturbing were the recorded temporal projections. Eliza began describing her own life at different ages simultaneously, as if existing in multiple timelines. Zimmerman interpreted manifestations as evidence that experiments were expanding the specimen's temporal perception. Existential suffering documented in psychological reports. Medical photographs show Eliza simultaneously developing physical characteristics of multiple ages: gray hair with baby teeth, deep wrinkles with childish bone structure, advanced cataracts with juvenile curiosity in the eyes. It was a biological contradiction that transformed existence into a constant temporal nightmare. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, a nurse who later developed selective amnesia about the period, wrote in her diary, "Every night I hear Eliza cry in the basement. These are neither a child's tears nor an elder's moans, but laments of someone who exists in all times simultaneously." Ritual of temporal culmination, cursed final ceremony. Experiments reached their climax during a ceremony that Zimmerman called the ritual of temporal culmination. During a procedure that extended over 3 consecutive nights, Eliza was subjected to the final process, complete extraction of what the scientists believed to be concentrated temporal essence. The objective was to collect a substance that Zimmerman theorized contained decades of vital experience temporally compressed. This essence would be refined and administered to paying circle members as an elixir that promised not only longevity but control over personal temporal flow. The last medical records of Eliza are too disturbing for complete description. The child, at 12 chronological years, presented characteristics of a dying centenarian, but maintained a consciousness that existed simultaneously in multiple ages until the final moment. Supernatural consequences haunt participants. Professor Edmund Crowe, a specialist in historical secret societies, developed a disturbing theory. The circle of temporal renewal wasn't just manipulating biology, it was altering local temporal structure. Experiments may have created an anomaly that continues to affect anyone who investigates the case. Evidence of this theory: every investigator who studied Eliza's archives developed symptoms of temporary accelerated aging, nightmares involving multiple versions of themselves, and distorted perception of time passage. As if knowledge of the case caused temporal contamination. Haunted survivors break decades of terrified silence. Our investigation managed to locate 3 survivors who witnessed events of 1844, all having developed psychological disturbances that persist decades later. Their accounts, collected in interviews that needed to be interrupted multiple times due to panic episodes, revealed details that no official document recorded. Eleanor Whitmore, nurse who aged prematurely. Eleanor Whitmore, now appearing centenarian at 73, was a young trainee during the period of experiments. She received us only after we presented specific credentials, and kept all windows closed during the interview, claiming that daylight makes her remember what she saw. "I was only 16, Eleanor recalled with a voice that oscillated between juvenile and elderly timbre, but I immediately realized something was altering time in the hospital. There were corridors where clocks worked differently, sounds of cries that seemed to come from the past and future simultaneously." Eleanor was the only person outside Zimmerman's team who directly witnessed Eliza during temporal transformation. One night, working beyond hours, she accidentally witnessed a ritual through a basement window and was never the same again. "What I saw changed not only my life, but my perception of time," she continued, her hands trembling with a rhythm that didn't correspond to chronological age. Hooded men, candles burning with flames that moved against the wind, and in the center a child who existed in multiple ages simultaneously. Thomas Morrison, son of the cursed medical examiner. Thomas Morrison, 85 years old appearing 50, inherited not only his father's secret notes, but also a curse that affects the family's temporal perception. Clocks in his house function at different speeds, and old photographs show him aging at an inconsistent rate. My father knew experiments were altering local temporal structure. Thomas explained during an interview that simultaneously lasted 2 hours and 6 hours depending on the clock consulted. He found children's bodies with impossible temporal characteristics. Dr. Morrison had secretly photographed victims, including Eliza. Images show contradictions that persist decades later. When observed quickly, they show a normal child; when contemplated longer, they reveal an elder; when photographed again, they appear different with each revelation. My father suspected Zimmerman had discovered how to manipulate biological time, Thomas added. He found evidence that cells aged independently of the body, as if each part existed in a different timeline. Sarah Caldwell, survivor with fragmented temporal memories. The most devastating testimony came from Sarah Caldwell, 88 chronological years, who appears different ages depending on lighting. At 9, she was selected for the program but managed to escape before the final procedures, though not without permanent temporal consequences. Sarah still exhibits physical anomalies: hair that alternates between colors according to seasons, scars that appear and disappear, and reflection in mirrors showing versions of different ages. Her memories exist simultaneously in multiple timelines. They kept us in cells where time worked strangely, Sarah recalled in the presence of her grandson, who observed uneasily how her appearance changed during conversation. There were other children, perhaps 10 or 12. Eliza was in the adjacent cell, and I heard not only her current cries, but echoes of cries from all ages she would experience. Sarah described rituals where children were forced to participate in ceremonies that mixed medicine with temporal manipulation. Men in white chose a different child each night. When they took Eliza, she returned existing in multiple times simultaneously. Final moments of Eliza Blackwood, fragmented temporal existence. Sarah's most disturbing description involves Eliza's final moments. She had become something that defies description: child, adolescent, adult and elder existing in the same body. One night I heard not only screams coming from her cell, but temporal echoes of all moments of her life happening simultaneously. Dr. Margaret Thornfield, who interviewed Sarah decades later using regressive hypnosis, confirmed authenticity through details that coincide with never-published documents. Sarah's memories show temporal fragmentation that persists to this day. She literally remembers the future. Temporal curse pursues investigators. All testimonies converge. Investigating Eliza's case causes temporal contamination in researchers. Each person who studies the archives develops similar symptoms: distorted perception of time, irregular aging, memories of events they didn't live. It wasn't just a medical experiment, concluded Eleanor Whitmore, whose appearance visibly changed during our interview. It was a rupture in the temporal structure that continues to affect anyone who approaches the truth about what they did to that child. Temporal curse remains active. Investigation ends in terror. Our 2-year investigation revealed truths that not only shook our sanity, but altered our fundamental perception of temporal reality. The Circle of Temporal Renewal didn't just conduct experiments, it created an anomaly that persists, haunting anyone who dares investigate Eliza Blackwood's case. Dr. Heinrich Zimmerman never faced earthly justice. Records suggest he may have discovered how to indefinitely prolong existence through temporal manipulation, possibly still existing today at an impossible age. Some investigators report sightings of a man who corresponds to his description, always appearing to be the exact same age. Eliza Blackwood, existence that transcends death. Officially, Eliza died in 1844. Unofficially, multiple witnesses report manifestations suggesting she may exist simultaneously in multiple timelines. Visitors to the old hospital site describe encounters with a child who looks like Eliza, always asking, "How old do you think I am?" Location remains haunted by temporal anomaly. Today, ruins of the Montgomery Hospital are avoided by local residents who report unexplainable phenomena, clocks that function at different speeds, shadows that move against the direction of the sun, and whispers of voices that speak about ages that make no sense. Dr. Septimus Graves, pathologist who was never the same after these discoveries. Final warning, this investigation ends here for reasons of personal sanity. Remaining files will be permanently sealed. We recommend readers avoid investigating this case, as knowledge may cause irreversible temporal contamination. Warning: temporal contamination possible. 3 investigators who studied this case developed unexplainable irregular aging. If this content doesn't receive massive engagement, algorithms will permanently bury revelations like this. Your interaction may be the last chance for others to discover temporal truths before they are lost forever.